Hello, my name is Amari Dobson. My research topic is what are the effects of food insecurity in early childhood years? This slideshow is for the class Reading and Research in Early Childhood Education, FCSC 4930, Fall 2021. Next, I'm going to go over my research interest slide. Why did this topic interest me? This topic interests me because I wanted to learn more about why some young children exhibit negative behaviors in the classroom and how food insecurity affects cognitive, social, and emotional development. My research question was, what are the effects of food insecurity in early childhood years? From this assignment, I hope to learn the cause and effects of childhood food insecurity and what can be done to support young children who are food insecure. Now I'm going to talk about my research findings. First, let's talk about food security. The definition of food security is availability and access to food by all members in a household at all times for an active and healthy life. Now, let me familiarize you with the definition of food insecurity. Food insecurity is defined by the U.S. Department of Agriculture as the disruption of food intake or eating patterns because of a lack of money and other resources. Food security ranges from high food security, marginal food security, low food security, and very low food security. Food insecurity is not an isolated problem. Children live in households that are affected by multiple challenges, and these challenges affect early childhood development. Low income and poverty are two of the causes for food insecurity in early childhood. Lack of transportation, time, and cost prevents parents from getting to the grocery store, and often parents have to walk to the grocery store or depend on public transportation. Low-income neighborhoods lack full grocery stores that sell healthy foods. Therefore, families have to rely on neighborhood corner stores that sell products with lots of sugar and fat. Investors are reluctant to invest in lower-income neighborhoods because of low profit margins, crime, and higher costs of overhead, where the demand for food items is low due to low-income shoppers. Physical and mental health problems of parents are widespread in low-income communities. Parents who are worried about providing food for their children who are hungry themselves may be less sensitive and responsive to their child's needs and engage in fewer activities known to stimulate early cognitive and social development. Young, poor, and underserved children who live in poverty and low-income households don't have an adequate means of transportation, lack neighborhood grocery stores, and live in a household where the caretaker suffers from physical and mental health problems. They also may have food security in early childhood. When young children experience food insecurity, they also experience many cognitive problems. Poor cognitive abilities make it difficult for a young child's brain to develop properly. This can lead to poor academic performance, the inability to follow directions, and hyperactivity. These are some relevant studies that assess the relationship between poverty, food insecurity, and cognitive development. These studies are consistent with previous reviews and studies that focus on household food insecurity and reinforce that household food insecurity in early childhood puts young children at risk for social, emotional challenges, cognitive developmental challenges, and health risks. Children who live in poverty and suffer from food insecurity have difficulties associated with school readiness because they live in an environment that is not supportive of school readiness. Poor mental health, disability, and chronic physical health conditions not only increase the likelihood of being food insecure, but are also associated with more severe levels of food insecurity among households experiencing hardships. Women who are affected by household food insecurity suffer from depression and have a hard time engaging with their children parenting, and making sure their children are healthy. Therefore, it's not surprising that children who are affected by household food insecurity have emotional challenges, such as anxiety, depression, aggression, attention deficit disorder, and health problems. These are some relevant studies that assess the relationship between maternal and childhood depression and food insecurity, as well as poor health outcomes and poor child care. These studies found that food insecurity is associated with cognitive, behavioral, psycho-emotional, and medical problems in young children and is consistent with previous literature and studies. Hunger can cause students to act out in the classroom or against their peers, which can lead to a student being disciplined, suspended, or labeled a behavioral problem. Children who often go hungry have a greater risk of developing impulse control problems and engaging in violence. These are some relevant studies that assess the relationship between childhood food insecurity, self-control, and violence. These studies found that children who experience persistent food insecurity in early childhood have a greater risk of lower self-control and are prone to delinquency and interpersonal violence later in life. In December of each year, after the USDA completes the labor force interview, about 40,000 households respond to food security questions and questions about food spending and the use of federal and community food assistance programs. In 2020, 85.2% of U.S. households were food secure. Households with children under the age of 18 had a food insecurity rate of 14.8%. In other households, 7.6% of both children and adults experienced food insecurity. In 2020, children along with adults suffered from periods of very low food insecurity in 0.8% of households with children. The households with very low food insecurity among children reported that children were hungry, skipped a meal, or did not eat for a whole day because there was not enough money for food. The existence of food insecurity varied among household types in 2020. Some significant changes in food insecurity from 2019 to 2020 occurred for some population subgroups. Food insecurity increased for all households with children from 13.6% in 2019 to 14.8% in 2020. The data showed that 28.6% of households had incomes below 185% of the poverty threshold. The federal poverty line is $26,246 for a family of 4 in 2020. Food insecurity was higher for households located in non-metropolitan areas, 11.6%, and for those in principal cities and metropolitan areas, is 12.7%. Very low food insecurity in various types of households was similar to that observed for food insecurity overall and was more widespread than the national average, 3.9%. The most significant change was households with children headed by a single woman, which was 8.2%, households with incomes below 185% of the poverty line, which was 10.8%. There are several food assistance programs that are federally funded and designed to help children and families in need, but these programs don't reach half of the eligible people. The barriers range from being knowledgeable, loan applications, identification, stigma, federal, state, and local eligibility requirements, and mental health issues. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly known as food stamps, is the nation's largest domestic and nutrition assistance program for low-income families. The National School Lunch Program is the nation's second largest food and nutrition assistance program and operates in public and private schools by providing balanced meals to children every day. The summer food service programs are free meal sites that help children up to age 18 years of age when school is out of session in June, July, and August. The Child and Adult Food Program provides meals and snacks to children at child care centers, family daycare, home for the elderly and disabled, emergency shelters, and after-school programs. Teachers and administrators are the stakeholders at schools. Students who are not following classroom rules, fighting, being aggressive, or having a hard time paying attention or staying awake are experiencing symptoms of food insecurity. Meeting the basic needs of young children must be addressed before teachers and administrators can expect them to perform academically. The School Parent-Teacher Association is a nonprofit organization that is a voice for children and families and a good resource for teachers and administrators. The PTA can support food insecure children and families throughout outreach and community programs, and also partner with a local food bank to collect non-perishable food items. There is a program called the Backpack Program that schools use to send home food in a backpack for the weekend and holidays. A greener approach towards supporting food insecurity is to identify space on the school grounds to plant a garden and allow students to maintain the garden with the help of school personnel. In conclusion, the causes of food insecurity in early childhood are low income and poverty, lack of access to transportation, lack of grocery stores, access to healthy food, poor physical and mental health of parents, caretakers, and violence. All of these causes are connected to social, emotional, and cognitive development, maternal and child physical and mental health, and violence. It is a ripple effect. One cause affects another. This is not because of the individual or the family, but because many other children who are food insecure live in poor households and poor communities. If families who live in poor and underserved neighborhoods have access to adequate resources, the children in these households will be positively impacted. Now I'm going to talk to you about assessment and evaluation. The research findings did provide me with sufficient information in response to my research question. I learned the root problems of what causes food insecurity in young children and the effects thereafter. Children in poor households who are food insecure face many challenges educationally, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and the effects are long-lasting. I did read some information that I was already familiar with. However, I gained more knowledge on how severe that lack of nutritious foods can be to a child who experiences early childhood food insecurity. The stress and anxiety concerning food can cause some children to have suicidal thoughts. I was surprised to learn that maternal mental health, as discussed in the study titled Influence of Maternal Depression on Household Food Insecurity for Low-Income Families, can impair decision-making abilities to shop, cook, work, or use the safety net of federally funded food programs. Maternal depression is a cause and effect of food insecurity in early childhood. I would like to see teachers and administrators take the lead in assessing behaviors in the classroom and schools and understand and recognize the signs and symptoms of food insecurity as discussed in the paper to support young children in early childhood. This research can be applied in the early childhood classroom today by having teachers observe young children's negative behaviors before labeling them a behavior problem. A consultation with the family and school counselor are the first steps for intervention. Now I would like to ask you, how would you approach a sensitive matter such as food insecurity with a parent of a student in your classroom? And I would also like to know, what type of professional development programs does your school offer to help teachers recognize signs and avoid bias against poor students who exhibit negative behaviors? Now I'm going to share all of my references with you. Thank you all for your time and have a great day.